Chris Roebuck is visiting professor from Cass Business School, and he joins us now to discuss this in a bit more detail. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So we're still hearing slightly different noises out of Barclays versus what we've heard from kind of the majority of the banks out there with regards to kind of, you know, we're doing this alone, we're all right, we don't need funding. They're almost kind of saying, leave us alone, let us get on with business, and that's that.
From the perspective of the bank, that's exactly what you want. You don't want any interference. What we've got here is a classic toxic mix of politicians trying to impose politics on banks who are trying to be driven by the market and economics.
What will we learn from the grilling that we're anticipating today?
Inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to get that clash. You're going to get the clash of the politicians who are looking to the forthcoming elections so that they are presenting the view to the general public that they want to do something about what the public perceives as bad behaviour on the part of the bankers. And obviously Varley is going to present a logical commercial case as for why the banks are doing what they're doing.
So in other words, we want to continue with the bonus structure that we have now, or are they going to make noises to try to tell politicians that, you know, we're scaling back, we're being a little bit more non-lenient?
I think if you look at the way the attitude of the banks has transitioned over the last 3 to 4 months, what's happened is initially there was a you don't understand us, we have to do it this way. And I think at Davos there was a fairly seminal moment in that I think the banks got it, that there's going to have to be some change in behaviour to mitigate the views that the general public around the world has in some way to come across as being more interested in everybody else rather than just themselves.
Chris, let's widen this out and ask David about his view on this. You've got 2% of your portfolio, top 10 stock position, actually in Lloyd's banking group as well. So you've got a view on the banks and where they go from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a reasonably painful one recently, the Lloyd's position. I have got some short positions as well, so I have to say, I said earlier, I'm not particularly overweight or net long the banks. I'm pretty neutral, but I think there is opportunity for some of them. I mean, it should be at this stage in the cycle, there should be, with the yield curve steep, they should be able to make a lot of money, and so you're kind of fighting two things. You've got the political headwinds and the regulatory headwinds, but generally the banks are in a position where they can should be able to make quite a lot of money at this stage in the cycle and repair their balance sheets.
It's been very interesting reading the comparisons between the testimony in 1929 and the testimony that was given by the bankers over this recent period. And of course the obvious conclusion is that we muck around, we tread water for several years with different competing proposals being put forward, and then ultimately we end up with another Glass-Steagall, because that's what happened in 29, sort of 34. Is there the likelihood that this will happen this time round, that ultimately we will not have a meeting of the minds globally, we will not have a meeting of the minds between regulators and bankers, and at the end of the day the politicians will just say, forget it, we've had enough, let's put in something that's very clear and crude but that can be understood very easily by the electorate and the bankers?
To some degree I think you're absolutely right. The comparison with the 30s is not completely valid in that obviously the world has changed, it's much more of a global market. I think that Obama's intervention and the vigour with which he used the phrase obscene bonuses suggests to me that that has become a driving force that will galvanise everybody else. And therefore, to some degree, if you look at what happened at Davos, people are now seeing the way the wind is going. The bankers are being more generous in terms of what they are prepared to accept, and I suspect that there will be a meeting of minds somewhere, although as you say it's probably going to be a fairly crude meeting of minds that gets both the politicians and the bankers off the hook.
It would be intelligent, wouldn't it, to pursue a policy where it is a question, in a way that the Americans are doing, what capital is at risk at this stage and what would be the implications of it being lost. In Europe we just seem to not be focused on that same aspect of this story. Why is that?
You're absolutely right. I think it's because, to a degree, what we've got within Europe is we've got competing interests. You've got Brown and Darling facing an election in due course. You've got Sarkozy, who doesn't want to be left behind. The mention of banking bonus controls didn't go down particularly well in Germany. So as a result of that, bluntly, everyone is playing to their own political agenda, and as a result of that you're not getting a cohesion of thought, a cohesion of action. And also, to a degree, I think that's why Obama's intervention made more sense than the interventions we've had in Europe.
Yeah. Good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for helping us out with the conversation.